Hey guys, Steinixos here. So today we'll be talking about Devil Fruit Awakenings. Specifically, we'll be talking about the potential possibilities of what a Logia awakening might be. Now Logia Devil Fruits, even at base, already provide a pretty overpowered set of skills. So for example, all Logias, with the exception of the Yami Yami no Mi, are just granted a fluid body which they can manipulate as they see fit and which is immune to basically all normal physical attacks. Like, just to put this into perspective, remember, even for just this single benefit, which almost all Logia Devil Fruits at base level provide, an entirely new power system, which we know to be hacky, had to be introduced to give non-Logia users a standardized way to fight against Logias, rather than just having these almost untouchable gods terrorizing the One Piece world. So if Logia Devil Fruits are able to even provide this level of benefit at base level, what then should we expect from them in their awakened state? Well, to answer this, I think we need to review the current information we have about awakenings. So as Doflamingo described in his battle against Gear 4 Luffy, a Devil Fruit awakening signals a higher and seemingly incomparable stage of mastery over your Devil Fruit abilities. But exactly how this mastery is expressed seems to be dependent on the class of Devil Fruit that a person has. So for those who hold a Paramecia Devil Fruit, this mastery is usually expressed in the form of altering the properties of things external to the Devil Fruit users. So for Paramecias who do not produce a tangible substance, like Kid for example, who has the Magnetism Devil Fruit, they merely assign the properties of their Devil Fruit to the external thing without changing the external thing as a whole. We see this for example in Kid's battle with Big Mom, where with his awakening, he was able to assign magnetic polarities to Big Mom as well as other non-magnetic structures such as rocks. Now this effect goes a step further with Paramecias like Doflamingo, who produce a tangible substance such as strings. For these Paramecias in their awakening, they not only merely assign a property, but rather they completely change the fundamental structure of the external thing to the substance that they produce. So this is actually the first possibility of a Logia's awakening, and that is, it could be a mirror of tangible Paramecias. So note, a Logia at base is able to produce their element. Caribou for example, who ate the Swam fruit, is able to produce mud from his body, but you'll note, he isn't actually changing the fundamental structure of the ground to mud, but rather, he's merely coating the ground in the mud that he produces. So if a Logia's awakening is like a tangible Paramecia, like Katakuri's Mochi in his awakening, instead of producing the element from themselves, they would be able to change the structure of things external to themselves to become their element. Now, we can only imagine how this would look for someone like Kizaru, changing the entire battlefield to light and erecting light-based structures. Now, even though this is a relatively simple and kind of fun possibility, I do not think this is what a Logia's awakening will actually be, because outside of special exceptions like Luffy, the current trend is that each class of Devil Fruit has its own distinctly different awakening effects. So as we already described, Paramecia Devil Fruits focus on altering the properties of things external to the user, whereas a Zoan Devil Fruit in contrast focuses on altering the attributes of the user themselves. So as Kaido highlights, this usually means there is some form of physical transformation, and as Crocodile explains, a Zoan's awakening is characterized by a general increase in physical attributes and the ease of recovery. So following this trend, it seems likely that if there is a Logia awakening, it would most likely have effects that are different than the already two established classes. But then the obvious question is, what could these effects be? Well, a clue to this might actually be hidden within a specific peculiarity of Zoan awakenings. So we know that Zoan Devil Fruits are the only class of Devil Fruits for which the Devil Fruits themselves have their own will. And thus, when a Zoan user is awakening, they run the risk of their will being fully taken over by the will of their Devil Fruit, basically converting them to a more primal state, which is presumably what happened to the jailer beasts at Impel Down, who we know are awakened Zoans as confirmed by Crocodile. So the second possibility is that a Logia's awakening is actually just the complete opposite of this. So what I mean is, a Logia's awakening may actually be the user being able to infuse their own will into their devil fruit elements, causing their elements to become sentient and independent of themselves. A good frame of reference for you to visualize this is by using Big Mom. So for example, take the fire Logia. Instead of them having to shoot a blast of flames themselves, with their awakening, they could instead infuse their will into their flames, causing it to create a sentient flame monster like Prometheus. Similarly with the Lightning Logia user, instead of them having to shoot out and control bolts of lightning themselves, imagine them infusing their will into the lightning itself to create a sentient lightning monster like Zeus. And of course, it doesn't have to be in some monstrous or animalistic form. The Logia user, by infusing their will into a human-like creation made of their element, could literally make sentient elemental clones of themselves, or even just freeform infusing their will into their elements, allowing it to just go wild by itself. I mean, for example, imagine Kizaru infusing his will into his light beams, causing them to be able to move in whatever direction they want after they have been fired, and thus being able to chase an opponent of their own will no matter which direction they go. You can see, with this option of Logia Awakening, the possibility for utility is endless, and this possibility of a Logia Awakening would definitely put a whole new spin on Kaido's words of when he said that an awakening is when your mind and your body catches up to your devil fruit. Now, even though those two prior possibilities were indeed interesting, I do think there's a more fundamental option to consider for a Logia's Awakening. You see, all of the known facts about devil fruit awakenings that we've discussed so far, regardless of the class of devil fruit, all seem to share the common theme of getting more mastery over the nature of the devil fruit itself. So for Paramecius, that was expressed in having a wider control over the things that can share the attributes or nature of your devil fruit powers. And with Zoans, for which we know the basis of their fruit is an increase in physical attributes, a Zoan awakening was thus then exponentially increasing the effect of the base nature of this class of devil fruit. So it stands to reason that a Logia awakening, like all other classes of devil fruit, may just be them getting a more fundamental control over the nature of their element. But what does this mean at a practical level? Well, take Crocodile for example, who ate the sand fruit. So Crocodile, like all other sand users in fiction, is able to use a variety of sand-based physical attacks. However, what makes Crocodile different from a basic sand user? That's right, you'll note that in addition to his basic sand attacks, he is also able to absorb moisture from living things. But how does this make sense? Well, think about it. What is a defining property of the nature of sand? That's right, it's dryness. So you would expect that an awakened sand user who has gained access to this fundamental property of absolute dryness would be able to cause other things to become dry by absorbing their moisture. But being that Crocodile was beaten by Luffy early in the series, this possibility of a Logia's awakening may not feel all that impressive to you. However, to really get an idea of just how broken this can be, you need to think about it on a broader scale of how this applies to other Logias. So other shown examples of this may be Akaino, who ate the magma fruit. Now again, think about it. What is a defining property of the nature of magma? That's right, it has to do with something relating to heat or burning. So you would expect an awakened magma user to be able to do something relating to the mastery of these principles. And I mean, we've seen this from Akaino at Punk Hazard, for example, where he was shown to be able to set water on fire. Now again, note, water is not flammable, so setting water itself on fire is not something that is actually possible. So this is indeed a very good example of what the higher level of mastery of the nature of magma could do. Another good example is the fact that Akaino was able to burn Ace, a Logia user who is fire itself. Now based on Akaino's dialogue, some people think this isn't an awakening effect, but rather that magma is just a fundamental weakness of fire. Now, this indeed could be the case, but I tend to disagree. You see, when Oda is making an elemental weakness, it generally follows logic that has some very concrete physical basis. So for example, rubber doesn't conduct electricity and is actually known to be the best insulator, so it makes sense that a rubber man is the lightning Logia weakness, as well as water, whose fundamental property is wetness, obviously fits being a counter to the sand Logia, whose fundamental property is dryness, the opposite. But you see, this paradigm does not exist between fire and magma. As a matter of fact, it is the opposite because they actually both share the fundamental nature of heat or burning. And apart from the fact that magma and fire often coexist, some flames are hotter than the hottest lava. So though it is possible, in principle it doesn't make sense for magma to just be a fundamental weakness of fire. However, if we had an awakened magma user who has a vastly superior control over the nature of heat or burning, then it makes absolute sense as to why they would be able to burn a flame user who is not awakened. So this is what I think actually happened between Ace and Akainu, and it sets up a very interesting potential battle of an awakened Sabo, the current user of the flame fruit, versus Akainu. But we'll just have to wait to see how that goes if it indeed happens. But again, this possibility of awakening goes even deeper, because if Oda decided to just stop holding back, then at the extremes of elemental nature control, you see, things get even more broken. Take the ice or chili fruit for example. Ask yourself, what is a fundamental property of the nature of ice or cold? That's right, it has to do with something related to freezing. And many of you would already be aware of the term absolute zero, which references a temperature of 0 Kelvin, a hypothetical temperature that in reality cannot be physically achieved. However, in the anime world, this absolute zero can be achieved by very skilled ice users like Esdeath from Akame ga Kill. And in keeping with our current theories of what would happen at absolute zero, that is, all motion stops, in the anime world, this takes the form of an ice user being able to freeze even time and space itself. So I'm hoping you appreciate just how unbelievably broken a Logia's awakening could in principle be. However, given that Logias are already pretty overpowered, and the fact that Oda is usually a pretty conservative guy, I truthfully don't expect him to go to such extremes. But it's still pretty fun considering these potential pathways which a Logia awakening in theory allows for. But anyway, that's the video guys. You can let me know what you thought about it in the comment section down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you like the video. But anyway, see you guys next time.